Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Meet a Vendor webinar hosted by SAVVI Financial. I'm Christy Doe, Shortlister's Meet a Vendor webinar moderator, and thank you so much for joining us today. Before I turn things over to today's presenters, I'd like to review a few quick housekeeping items, especially for those of you who may be first-time attendees. Our Meet a Vendor webinars take place on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central Time. We use a condensed format of 30 minutes, and that includes a 25-minute presentation followed by 5 minutes of questions. To submit a question, you should see a box at the top of your screen with a question mark in it. Just click the box, type in your question, send it over, and we'll get to as many of those as we can in the time that remains after the presentation. For our subscribers, our Meet a Vendor webinars are actually recorded and uploaded onto our platform. So if you go over to SAVVI's vendor profile, you'll find the presentation there. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to our very diverse panel of presenters. We have Jake Aldrich, Sales Director with SAVVI, Ben Yomtoob, Strategic Advisor, AI and HR Tech with BuckleyRoberts, and Sims Tillirson, Founder and Principal with Tillirson Consulting.
Well, perfect. Christy, thank you for the introductions and for working with us to get this prepared. Thank you for all of your work. And to give a little background, my name is Jake Aldrich, Director here at SAVVI Financial. And I have worked with Ben Yomtoob in the past. He was actually my boss a few years ago at Workterra. We're a benefits administration platform. And we were doing some online activities like this that were very interactive. And one of the presenters that joined us in one of those was Sims Tillirson. And he came on and joined us. And in the last 3 years, these are both great guys, and we've been able to keep in touch. And in the last 3 years, both of their careers have really taken off. They are both outstanding individuals. They're very well respected, very smart and wise, especially in the HR tech industry. And so if those of you who are on today have not met them or are not following them on LinkedIn, I highly recommend you do so. They're just fantastic resources that will benefit you greatly. So I'm glad that they have joined us today. And if you've ever been to one of my events before, I love to have interactive events where you're not just watching talking heads. So we're going to start off with a poll. And those of you who are online with us today, you can put your answers in the chat, and Christy's going to kind of tell us who's responding, who's participating in the chat. But I'll kick this over to Sims and Ben first. When do the majority of employees, in your experience, choose their benefits? Any of these answers work for you?
Yeah, I actually think that we need a sixth option here, Jake. Like the week after enrollment's done, and everybody's scrambling to get their elections in.
Good call.
Yeah, since that one's not there, I'll go with number 4, which is right before the deadline. I just speaking from personal experience as someone who's in the industry, I'm like blown away by how many times I've done that myself, and go into open enrollment expecting to be very thoughtful and introspective about the whole thing, but at the end of the day, hitting that number 4, doing it right before the deadline, and doing a lot of the same things I did the year before.
Yeah, I agreed. I think number 2 is probably the one least selected. Yeah. Right, Christy,
so
did
far,
we have any selections? Yeah.
So folks, again, what Jake is asking, that you respond in the chat box. So far, nobody's put anything in, Jake, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm just clearing it up that with folks, that if they drop a number in, I'll be able to see it, even if you keep going. One person did drop it into the question box, which is fine, and she dropped in 1.
Yeah, asking coworkers or friends. I've even heard of people going to ChatGPT, literally putting this stuff into ChatGPT and trying to find it. Like, people are desperate. And one of the things we recently did here at SAVVI was we did a blindfold benefit survey, and we asked a large group of people about their benefits. And one thing that is unique that always comes out is that there's a disparity between how well employers think they're communicating their benefits and how well their benefits are serving their employee population, with how well the employees feel the same about those benefits. And I've been in this industry for a decade or so now, and the language hasn't really changed that much about what we're doing. And we've really driven this idea of decision support coming through education. And so, Sims, I want to start with you. What do you think about decision support, and is it really working?
Yeah, so I love the concept of decision support, right? I've worked in many bin admin firms, employee engagement firms. I mean, that's how we met. I was trying to sell
Yeah.
you some stuff, Ben, and we almost got there, right? Um, so I've been around the enrollment and engagement space for a while. I think it's a fantastic concept, but my issue with it, and y'all are probably tired of hearing me say this, is that I still have the belief that most existing decision support tools are trained on years and years and years of what I'll call aggressive sales behavior by voluntary benefit salespeople. And I feel okay saying that because I've been one.
Yeah, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, we are definitely not where we want to be with this. And what's happened in a lot of cases is as employers have kind of seen this problem, they've just layered on one more thing after another on top of the things they already had. Decision support's been the one that's been layered on most recently. The big challenge is that culturally we're not where we need to be, where people are engaged in their benefit programs on a year-round basis. So they really come into this with just a ton of stuff that they need to wrap their heads around. And oftentimes, because it's not something that they thought about since the previous year, they need to rewrap their heads around a lot of these concepts over and over again, and never quite absorb them. It blows my mind when you see the data of how many people still don't know, what a deductible is, don't know what a copay is. It's not working what we're doing right now. That's definitely the key problem we have.
Yeah, indeed. When you feel like someone's pushing something on you and you don't understand the value of a benefit, and you're looking at your paycheck and you're going through and making these deductions, you go, oh, that's $10 out of my paycheck, $15 out of my paycheck. How does that work? And not understanding how things can work together is a big deal. And a lot of our decision support recently has gone towards high deductible health plans. And if we push people into high deductible health plans without preparing them for the upcoming expenses they may incur by going to that high deductible health plan, we might be pushing them in a wrong direction. So just because on paper a high deductible health plan seems like the right solution, it may not be. You have to take into a much broader picture. I agree. I was kind of thinking about education when I went to my accountant earlier this year. If I went to my accountant and they pulled out a pamphlet or a video and said, "Here, watch something on the tax code, and you figure out how to lower your tax bracket, right? Your taxable income," I'd find a new accountant. Like, I want my accountant to tell me, "Hey, Jake, here are 3 things you can do and not go to jail." Right? Like, I want
Yeah,
guidance. Uh,
right.
so speaking of decision support and education just kind of waning, and Ben, as you said, there's just over and over they go through that process. What are we seeing here? Are you seeing a shift from education to a need for guidance, particularly around health and financial guidance at open enrollment?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest challenge is that people aren't enmeshed in this stuff 365 days a year. I think that's going to have to be an important shift that happens. But beyond that, the ability to not just be looking at the benefit decision, but really, it's ultimately all about financial wellness, right?
That's
We
right.
have these benefits to save us out-of-pocket costs when we have health events, when our pet has a health event, retirement, et cetera, et cetera. And so it is all really about financial wellness. And so it really makes sense for it to be about financial guidance at the end of the day.
Yeah. Sims, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and you got my wheels turning on that, talking about high deductible health plans. I mean, I think that, to your point, if we make decisions about benefits in a silo and think, hey, this health plan is super affordable compared to the PPO, I'm going to get this, but We don't have this overarching view of what my bank account is going to look like if I have to go to the doctor. Um, it's a big issue, and candidly, even after being in this business for over a decade as well, it's not something I'm apt to think about. And I don't carry insurance myself anymore, but it's not something I've been apt to think about during OE. It's been the kind of thing where I hop in whether I have a decision support tool or not, and kind of to Ben's point, make a lot of the same decisions that I made last year and make them absolutely as quickly as possible. But I'm curious from you guys, and sorry to play moderator here and put you in the panelist spot, Jake, but I'm curious from you guys, like, is there a way to get to a population that's so engaged that the decision support conversation does happen more than once a year?
I think there is. I think, it's basically, today we have every company has a benefits department, has an HR department. I think every supervisor, every manager needs to have very strong benefit expertise so that as part of everything that's going on within the daily workflow, they're focused on employee care and making sure their employee is getting everything that they need to get. When you look at the data out there in terms of the percent of companies that feel like they're doing everything they can to take care of employees versus what percent of employees feel that, it's like a 30-point gap between, from a perception to reality. So to me, it's all about getting everybody involved in the benefit landscape and making sure that it's an ongoing conversation and an ongoing dialogue in the workplace, not just part of open enrollment.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a shift that we've already kind of mentioned, Ben, you might have mentioned it, is that these are financial decisions. The employees go through it right now and they think of it as a benefit decision, but it's really benefits in your healthcare is probably your third largest cost that you incur throughout the year. You have your home, you have your car, you have taxes, and then it's your healthcare. And so if we were to position this more as a financial conversation and having people come back to check, because I check my bank account, right? I check to make sure my paycheck went out. I make sure it's going to cover my bills. I make sure that I'm checking out my finances, and I check in with my financial advisor a couple times a year, just like making sure that things are growing and going in the right direction. And if we can unsilo these benefits and we can show them the financial overview, not just how we're doing this year and what are we planning for this year, and are we building up those emergency savings account? Are we building up our HSA so we can put this towards our healthcare expenses? But we can totally look at that, how important it is that your healthcare selection this year is going to make an impact on your ability to retire and have financial fortitude. Right? If we can change that mindset to a financial mindset, focusing on the financial aspect of that, I think people would be more inclined to come back repeatedly to make sure they're maximizing all their benefits.
I totally agree.
I do as well. And that's where I am as a consumer. If I were to sit down and do enrollment today and you offer me holistic financial guidance as opposed to traditional benefits decision support, I'm going to be more receptive to the holistic financial guidance. Just like when I've been an employee of a big company, I love taking a look at that big total reward statement, right? Because it makes me feel like I'm getting a lot more than just this little piece that we tend to focus on.
That's right.
Yeah, and I know we're past the last question about whether it's all working or not after 20 years. But I think one of the things to not lose sight of is how much the industry's evolved and changed, and that we have tools like SAVVI now that you could kind of envision them 20 years ago, but we definitely didn't have something like SAVVI 20 years ago that was holistic and not, those initial, if we go back 20 years, those tools we talked about high deductible health plans. All those tools did was help you figure out which health plan to take. And the good news is the whole industry has really moved beyond that. I really like the notion of reframing it from being education to being guidance. My mind goes into all kinds of interesting places in terms of thinking about that, where it's like, oh, okay, I don't need to be the expert on all of it. I have good tools that make it easier for me.
Yeah, and to briefly explain what SAVVI does here that's unique in this situation is that we're going to present, 3 good options for an employee, and we'll have our recommendation in as one of those 3 options. But what we show at a glance for all employees going through the open enrollment process is within these 3 options, we're going to show them what their financial impact is going to be. If they have their expected medical year on a particular plan, maybe it's a PPO, one's a high deductible health plan, maybe one's an HMO, whatever they might be. And we're going to show them what their net outcome for the year is going to be on the expected year, but also the unexpected year when they have those medical expenses. And then in the drop down right below it, we're going to show them all of their tax advantages of saying, hey, here's how you can do this, right? We'll show them what those tax advantages are, but then also saying, do you have emergency savings built up to cover these medical costs even when they come due, right? So we're not just looking at the HSA or a 401k and doing the company match, but making sure that an employee is prepared from day one, or we are going to get them prepared from day one to be able to incur medical expenses and develop financial fortitude. So it's a big difference. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
The reality in this world we have where half the people are living paycheck to paycheck, having a tool like that available to you to use at open enrollment and on an ongoing basis. Again, there's going to be a cultural shift that ultimately needs to happen to really make that effective. But if the starting point is to have the tool, and I think another big part of it is the starting point is management and leadership having conversations with employees about it. Because the reality is when that stuff isn't going well for you as an employee, guess what? You're bringing it to work with you, and it affects your productivity, and it affects the company's bottom line. If you've got, kind of the paycheck to paycheck thing as an example, like, oh shit, sorry. Oh boy.
The fact that I'm not the person that dropped the first curse word in this call is just an absolute miracle. Thanks for bailing me out, Ben.
Hey, yeah. So my paycheck comes on Thursday, but the rent's due on Wednesday. What do I do about that? All of that needs to be. It's stuff that you need to be engaged with, and people are engaged with it, and they bring it to work with them, and so it just underscores the importance of having good tools to help you manage it.
So important, Ben. I was going to try and work in a cuss word there, but it just didn't fit. So I was just going to kind of keep up with Ben. Hope we don't get fired from Shortlister. So that was a great discussion. Looking ahead to the new era of effortless, data-driven health and financial guidance, as you think about these key terms going in here, what are some things that you see are needed as the industry is moving forward for better guidance tools?
So I would say one of the things is that, the holistic aspect of it is important. And if we kind of think about where we need to go with some of these things in the future, you've typically got, if you think of the tools we have, they're kind of geared around the notion of a single breadwinner and a single spouse, kind of managing and doing everything. So making sure that the tools can kind of broaden and be family decisions and not just individual decisions. I think that's kind of something to be thinking about as we go forward on this. And beyond that, I also think helping people assess where they are in their overall financial wellness, helping them track it. Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? Are they in the same place? These are all the sorts of things that I think we're going to see tools like SAVVI and other companies deliver in future years.
Yeah, absolutely love that take, Ben. And I really I think we kind of gloss over it sometimes, the notion you mentioned around a single breadwinner, right? But even if I'm the breadwinner in my house, most likely scenario is that my wife is probably holding onto the purse strings. That tends to be the case for a lot of married men, and it's something that we look over when we think about benefits enrollment, because people that aren't the financial decision maker in their household, even if they are the breadwinner, what do they do if their spouse, if their family doesn't have access to this type of tool? So I appreciate you calling that out. Uh, Also agree with the idea of a holistic view is really important. But one of the things that I'd be interested in seeing, even just as a leading indicator, is, we talked about, I demonize the high deductible health plan plus supplemental benefit play a good bit because it tends to benefit an enrollment firm or a ben admin firm that's taking a split of commission on voluntary benefits more than it does an employee. However, that doesn't mean that the high deductible health plan plus supplemental benefits doesn't work for a lot of people. It does. So one of the leading indicators I'd like to see is just more of a breadth of options that come up for, Jake, Ben, if the three of us did a decision support exercise through SAVVI, it'd be interesting to see, do we all get the same recommendation? Because in a lot of decision support tools, we'd all get the same recommendation. And it's my sense that with a SAVVI, with some of the more robust decision support tools that are coming out today, that there would be a really wide range of options that are presented to the three of us because we're very different people and different life stages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
definitely. That is a good question. Be a fun experiment for us to do. But I was thinking back to your comment on getting employees to see how they're doing financially year over year, right? And one of the audiences that we have a lot of success with is some of that lower pay range, that 12 to 15 to $20 hour, the shop factory worker, right? Where they are prone to leave a job to make 50 cents more an hour, $1 more an hour,
Right.
without understanding what their benefits are. And the ability to do a couple of things. One is you can retain better talent when they understand the value of their benefits. And if they're starting to see financial fortitude developing, being like, man, I'm investing this $10, I'm investing $50 a month into a certain account and seeing it grow, or maybe they're taking our financial advice saying, we're going to help you get to a point where you can cover a $400 medical expense, or if there's a downturn in the economy and you're laid off and you need 3 months of savings, like, we're going to help them build that vision to get there. And so that's one of the things, Ben, as you were talking about, the value of helping an employee see their financial fortitude growing
Right.
regularly is a powerful tool, not only for the
Yep.
employee, but also for the employer to keep and retain talent.
Yeah, I mean, interesting that you mentioned that, and you talked about us working together, and I've been like Sims, I've been self-employed for the last couple of years, and that's what you talked about is literally something I do every week, is kind of go in and look and see exactly how did things change and stuff like that. And it's like this big manual process, and to have a tool that supports me would definitely make it a lot easier.
No kidding, Ben. I'm in my operating account and my invoicing platform way too often to see what the outlay looks like.
Yeah.
What I think it's really important, though, that one of the key features for looking ahead is that we change this from a benefit decision where employees simply look at their benefits as something coming out of their paycheck. They feel like they're getting nickel and dimed, to an investment in their financial fortitude. When they can understand what some of these investments are, how we're protecting their financial wealth, maybe through some of these supplementary voluntary benefits, as well as investing in those tax deferred options if they qualify for them, right? Building up their financial savings so that we can show them like what financial fortitude brings as in peace to a family or a person. So I think that's a huge piece of changing how we look ahead. So gentlemen, we've got about 5 minutes left here. Any tips or final questions, things that you're thinking about through this conversation? Ben, profanity's welcome.
I would say my biggest tip is for the managers and leaders that are on the call today is, independent of whatever your company might be doing to support this, start figuring out what role you should play in engaging employees more in the benefit program, because that's going to just be good for everybody if you're able to do that, and getting people more, thinking about their benefits day to day rather than just once a year.
Love that.
I'd like to see how you do that, right? If they've got so many things on their plates, the managers and benefits, like what does that look like? I feel like that's been maybe an initiative for some companies for a while. But how do you get the management to be more involved in that benefit process?
Yep.
Have any thoughts on that real quick?
I think it starts with, as a manager, you got to educate yourself on the totality of the company's benefit program. So you can't be communicating with employees about it realistically. And I think it's something to start thinking about incorporating in all your communications with employees, relative to their well-being and their health and their productivity. Talking about how taking advantage of the benefit program is important. Even something as simple as, hey, when you're doing one-on-ones, asking an employee, where have you scheduled? Actually, Jake, you and I had this conversation once. Have you scheduled your annual physical yet? It's really important that you go and do that. And those sorts of things, I think, are going to be the kind of thing that starts to change things.
Yeah, good call. Sims, any thoughts?
Yeah, little tip from my end is going to be geared toward just younger folks, 5 years or less in the workforce, because I remember being very, very focused on my 401k early in my career and really not focused on my benefits because I didn't understand how all the things played together. I knew that I could get a high deductible health plan and have triple tax deferrals through my HSA. I just didn't know what that meant, right? So I did that, but I would encourage younger employees to get really, really, really educated about the healthcare system in general, but also your benefits package. And if you don't have a great tool like SAVVI that shows you your holistic picture, create your holistic picture manually and really start thinking about your benefits from that lens.
How do you create that manually, Sims?
I think it's instead of, most companies even today still don't have like your 401k elections in the same place as you have your benefit elections. So I think it's in a spreadsheet on a piece of paper, looking at what your financial outlay is, what your payroll deductions are, and then doing the exercise you kind of talked about, Jake. Like, okay, I have a HDHP and my out of pocket is $3,000. Do I have $3,000? If I don't, how do I make a plan to get there?
That's right. No, it's important. And fortunately for SAVVI, I love how you teed that up. For SAVVI, that is what we do in a single conversation. In just a matter of a few screens, we will take them from their benefits and show them what from open enrollment to retirement, what that picture looks like and how to invest and where. And we'll call out that you need to develop that $300 or $400 savings account, right? You need that emergency fund, maybe of a couple $1,000s. And then, your first investment should be going into your HSA, or maybe it's getting your company match first through your 401k, and then, filling up the HSA first and making sure you can use those funds as they're needed. And so that holistic guidance is incredibly important. And I think, Ben, I was thinking, one of the companies that I worked with in the past, they had champions within their divisions for human resources. And one of the things they did to increase their culture, to improve their culture, to improve what's going on, was they had champions in each department. And these were peers that were buying into what HR was doing. So it wasn't even a manager coming to them. It was the peer coming in. And so, man, great information here, guys. I want to put this up one more time. I know we're coming up on time here real quick. as I mentioned before, Sims and Ben are fantastic resources within this HR tech space. If you have not connected with them, I strongly encourage you to write down their email address, find them both on LinkedIn, connect with them, take a quick screenshot of this. They're fantastic. And of course, for SAVVI Financial, we would love to be able to have a conversation with you to share what we're doing, how we're using data and AI to empower your employees to make better healthcare decisions that are really financial decisions that are going to impact the rest of their lives, and how ultimately that'll tie back into your company, help reduce your healthcare costs, and hopefully improve retention and a few other things as well. So we are right on time.
We are, and I want to thank you as I wrap it up real quick here, and let the people know there was a couple questions I think that came in. Jake will make sure you get those right afterwards so you can respond. The three of you are great. Your knowledge is great. So thank you so much for leading us toward financial guidance. I think it's a really important conversation, actually. And Ben, your humor helped, in my opinion. So all is good. You will not be fired from Shortlister. Yeah, it's all good. So we have reached the end of our time together. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the line for our next Meet a Vendor webinar, Wednesday, June 25th at 1 p.m. Central. Until then, take good care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Christy. Bye, everyone.
Good to see you.